everybody, Martin Gilmore here. I've gotten a lot of requests to teach a lesson on how I play the song Darlin' Corey. Some people call it Dig a Hole in the Meadow. Same song. I learned it from Flatt Scruggs, but I kind of have different versions that I've heard other people play. And I thought I'd teach you my version today since so many people have asked about it. I'm finally getting around to it. The first thing to know is that I play it in drop D. So if you're not familiar with drop D, take your low E string and tune it down a whole step so it goes from E down to a D. So now this string and your D string should be an octave apart, like that. That's kind of your first step to getting going. Now, I hear a lot of people who think that this song is in D minor, and it's important to know the chords. Whenever you're learning a song, learn the chords first. This song really isn't in D minor. If I play a D minor chord, it's not really what I do. Instead, what I would do is play what people will call a D5, where I eliminate the third. So instead of a major third, there's no F sharp and there's no F. It's not minor. I just lift this middle finger up and I play, it's basically D and A all the way across. I have a low D, an A string, a D. My first finger on the second fret of the G string is an A and a D. So there's no third, neither major or minor. Instead, like with a lot of this mountain modal kind of music, the third is somewhere in between minor and major. And so a lot of times, because of the way the guitar is with the frets, I'll have to bend the string to kind of find the right note. And you can hear that, like when you pick out the melody, the third we want is kind of halfway in between. That's kind of the note that I'm seeking. If you play the fiddle or a fretless banjo or any fretless instrument, you'll be able to get there, but it's harder when you play the guitar. Chords are pretty easy. It's just D, 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 D. Stay on D right there. Again, just the D5. I don't have my middle finger down. D, 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 D to A. And when I play the A, a lot of times I just leave my ring finger down and kind of suspend it, and I play the A chord with my first finger, A. So there's not a lot of difference in the shape. D, 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 D. Here's A. That's the whole chord progression. Pretty easy to play a 2-chord song. Now, there's more stuff that I do with the guitar to kind of dress it up. There's little bass lines or little riffs that go with this. And this song is especially good for that because you can play most of the melody just on the 3rd frets and the open strings of these low bass strings on the guitar, especially when you're tuned in drop D, where you're playing F, D, F, D, C, D, C, A, C, D. There's the melody. Does it again. Then. So with that one finger, another reason that it's nice to kind of keep that shape and just have that middle finger floating is it allows you to get to that melody on those bass strings. I'm kind of fudging around the melody. It's not exactly what I would sing, but it's close. And I think it's important whenever you learn a song, you learn the chord progression, you learn to sing the melody. Even if you're not a singer, learn how to sing it a little bit. And even if you don't intend to sing it, at least have it up here. Because you've got to get the melody into your head so that you can find it on the guitar. It's all right to learn stuff off of tabs. It's all right to learn stuff off of notation. But the real tradition of bluegrass and folk music is learning stuff by ear, and it's a skill that you can develop. You don't necessarily have to know how to do it right away. You don't, even if you feel like, boy, I can't learn anything by ear, it's something that you can get better and better at. But the first thing that you have to do is learn to get the melody into your head so that you can hear it in your head, so you can walk around with it and whistle it and sing it and hum it and come up with your own variations. And then you sit down and go phrase by phrase and kind of pick out the tunes. This is a great tune for that because the melody isn't particularly complicated, and the moves in the melody are pretty, excuse me, still getting over my cold. The moves are pretty straightforward and repetitive. So if you learn just the open strings and the third fret and kind of the patterns in there, you could find the melody. Now the challenge of that would be trying to copy the rhythm of that melody, trying to find the right notes that apply to that melody. But because it's sort of the same thing over and over again, this is a good song to work on that skill with. So when I play it, when I kick it off, that's kind of what I do. Now there's a couple of little licks that you can add in. Sometimes I'll do slide to unison. So like if we slide from the third fret up to the fifth fret, those notes are unison, right? There's not really a G in there, but I can slide up to that D note. Like that. You can slide up to that major third if you want. So once you get that melody kind of down, you could start to play with it. You could play with the rhythm. You could play with those little licks. A slide up to the F sharp, a slide up to that unison. Sometimes I bend that note. It's the same thing. Bend in the low D string so that I can get that kind of in between the F and the F sharp to get those notes. That's a great place to start with learning this song, and you get a cool sound out of it. Now, the same thing would be you could learn to play the melody up here on the high strings too. And a lot of times that's a good approach if you want to have a couple of different solos. Learn to play the melody in one register, learn to play the melody in a second register. So I'm playing F, F sharp, D, so tricky. C, A, C, D. It's the same stuff that I'm doing on these low strings, but on the higher strings. It's just because of the way they're tuned, it's more complicated. So you don't even have to do it as complicated as I did. You could go. That's kind of a quarter note melody. That's a great way to get started. I know it doesn't sound that fancy when you sit down to do it, but it is the song. It plays the actual melody of the song, and people will know that you know it. And then you could start to dress those things up as you get more and more familiar with it. Anytime I learn a new song, that's kind of the thing that I chase down. Can I play the basic melody, the simple melody, as clearly as possible, and then I'll start to dress it up with hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides to unison. I'll add little licks in between the phrases. That's kind of the way that I start doing it, because I love bluegrass music, but a lot of the songs sound the same, and so you kind of have to play the actual melody of the song in order for the song to stand apart. Great to learn some hot licks. Sometimes you're in a jam session and you get the first solo and you don't know how the song goes, and to have some hot licks you can kind of fudge over the chord progression and make something that sounds cool. But you can get to the point where you can hear the melody in your head, and as long as you get it in your head, you can get your hand to kind of play it. It takes some time to kind of build that relationship between those things. The other thing that I pay attention to on Dig a Hole in the Meadow is, and any song that I play, is I really try to think about the arc of the song, that there's a place for the song to go. So I don't play all of my licks full blast out of the chute, right? I kind of try to build up to playing my fanciest stuff. So I guess in a lot of my videos, maybe you'll notice like the first solo is more basic, and then the second solo I try to do stuff that's more complicated. Likewise with my rhythm playing, when I back up the first verse, I try to do less. The second verse will have more movement, more bass lines, more stuff going on, and the third verse will have some kind of boost to it, or some kind of structure. I really try to envision how the song builds, how the song goes. So when you're playing a song, you have to know the chords, you have to know the melody. Those are the things that you must know in order to get from the beginning to the end of the song. But the real musicianship comes from the way that you shape the song, the way that you think dynamically about the song, the way that you add stuff or take stuff away to express the song, the way you try to express the message. Can you respond to the lyrics? Can you respond to the musical movement of the song and make what you're doing on your guitar really prop that up? That's something I try to do on Darlin' Corey. I'll start it off with maybe a strum like this. Well, dig a hole in the meadow, dig a hole in the cold, cold ground. Dig a hole in the meadow, you're gonna lay Darlin' Corey down. Well, first time I see Darlin' Corey, she was sitting on the banks of the sea, and a 44 buckled around her and a banjo on her knee. Dig a hole in the meadow, dig a hole in the cold, cold ground. Dig a hole in the meadow, you're gonna lay Darlin' Corey down. So I kind of try to get the groove, and the song like starts to bounce along like that. That's another thing that's kind of tricky, but something to pay attention to, is I really try to like feel how the song pulses, that I try to feel the groove of the song, almost as if there's a band playing behind me. And I really try to internalize that meaning that like it has a movement that goes along with it. Because a lot of times when you're on stage or at the jam session, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's easy to get distracted, and it's hard to sometimes recall how fast the song should be, how the song should feel, etc. And so if I have it internalized, I could just take a second to kind of get in the movement. Okay, here's how the song goes, and that will maybe mean that I don't accidentally kick the song off too fast or too slow. It's sort of bad form to stop a song and restart it. Just take a few seconds at the beginning to get that groove and get that stuff established. And then as you go along, it'll groove more and more and more. That means you really have to listen for the groove. You have to learn how the groove feels and play around with it and figure out a way that you can easily recall that. That's a lot of musicianship skill that's not really something that's easy for a teacher or someone to express to you. It's the way you feel it. It's the way you interpret it. And you can listen to Flatt Scruggs and say, I hear the groove that they're doing, but how does that make you move, and how are you going to recall that in the moment so that you can make things happen? It's something that I really pay attention to whenever I'm playing a song. When I'm playing a full set of songs, I think about how the flow of grooves goes, so that each song isn't exactly the same thing all the time, that there's a difference in textures, in rhythms, in dynamics, in just the feel of the song, so that the show has some kind of arc through the energy, if you will. I really try to be conscious of that. And almost every great musician that I've ever heard talk about that basically has that same thing. Great producers talk about making a flow of the record that way. Great players talk about making shows that way. Anybody who you watch who's a good player will think about those things. You need to think about that too. And Darlin' Corey is a great place to start because it has a really heavy groove. It sort of is simple in its construction. It only has 2 chords, and the melody you can play with just that one finger on those low strings. But the magic of it is the groove. The magic of it is the feel. So you could take something really simple, and as long as the groove is there, it'll have a lot of magic to it. But you can also take something really simple, and if it doesn't have any groove, it will have no magic, and it will not, it won't be impressive at all because it only has 2 chords. So there's a lot of other levels of musicianship that go into making a song like Darlin' Corey happen, and it requires a lot of practice. But a lot of that practice is learning how you feel about the music, how you internalize that music. And then how can you take that internalized feeling and put it back onto your instrument. That requires a lot of thought and a lot of thinking and a lot of practice and a lot of relating how you're feeling feeling to what's going on your guitar, and being discerning about whether what you're playing is what you're feeling. And that might require you to get your phone out like this and record, to get a recorder out. I have my little recorder here that I'm using. And record it so you can hear the groove, playing with other people, playing along with the record. All those things can help you establish that groove and establish that feeling. So good luck. If you have any questions, put them in the comments down below. I'm happy to answer them. And yeah, it's a great song. Darling Corey. Like and subscribe. See you next time.